Black Music Month also. Um, that should be noted because most of the music that we dive into on this program is from black artists. Black artists, black producers, blackety black, black, black. Anyway, Black Music Month. We talked about Juneteenth last week. Still riding high off of those vibes. Anyway, welcome to Mommy's Pocketbook, episode 16. 16 weeks. Actually 17 because one of those weeks I didn't do a show because I was out of town. Anyway, Mommy's Pocketbook is a weekly foray into the music of yesteryear, what the youth of way back in the day were listening to, what was hot in the streets, what was moving units on the billboard, what was hot at the parties. It gives you an eye into what was in Mommy's Pocketbook. If you ever know any woman, and everybody does, if you were birthed, you know a woman. Even if you were not, if you don't know your birth, your natural birth humans, you know of a woman. Because 9 times out of 10, that's who's taking care of you in some way, shape, or form. Anyway, if you ever get a chance to look inside a woman's purse, which is pretty much a no-no, you would know a lot about that woman. This is why I call this show Mommy's Pocketbook, because I'm diving into a collection of records that used to be my mother's, and it gives me a little bit of insight as to what was she into back in those days of her youth and young adulthood, and taking you along with me. So we're going to do 10 classic records. 10 classic records. We do that every week, and we're going to listen to them, and we're going to talk about them, and we're going to have a good old time. So, thank you for tuning in, and enjoy the ride. This is Mommy's Pocketbook, and the first of our 10 is from Carla Thomas. I didn't get a chance to write down the records, so this one is a little ashy. I'm going to hope that it plays properly. If it doesn't, that's part of the essence of listening to old analog recordings, in that they sometimes are not as polished and pristine and clean as their newer digital counterparts. But don't hate on the classics, because that's where the good funk and soul and R&B was really put. It was really driven into those needles and pressed into that wax that is the 45 records. So without further ado, our number one of our 10, Carla Thomas. Carla Thomas, born 1942 in Memphis, R&B singer, the daughter of Rufus Thomas. They were the first, both she and her dad, Rufus Thomas, were the first to cut a record for Stax. And we talk about Stax all the time. Stax is to the music movement what Motown was to the soul movement. But Stax brought you that southern Memphis groovy sound. Started by Ahmet Ertegun, Herb Abramson, and his wife Miriam in 1947. Later on, it was joined with Ahmet's brother Nasuhi and Jerry Wexler, the prominent music exec. There was a whole lot of shifts in ownership between Stax and other places, but Stax is the beginnings of the soul funk era in Memphis. Anyway, so they cut that for Stax, which was at the time Satellite, and they made a lot of money for them, okay? But yada yada yada, people move from record label to record label. This particular one was released on Atlantic. Carla Thomas, I'll give you a little bit more information about that. You know her from Gee whiz, look at his eyes. Yes. She wrote that at 16 years old. I did not know that until I was doing the research for this. But she wrote that at 16 years old. It's one of her signature hits. Hit number 10 on the pop charts in 1961. And top 5 was a top 5 R&B hit as well. And she performed it on American Bandstand. You remember back in those days, you had your shows that focused on the white artists and the white audiences. And then you had your Soul Train that came along that was like, okay, you don't really have a place. I've created one for you that is Soul Train, so come on over. Okay? But the fact that they were kind of integrating at the time and she was able to perform on there was also a great feat of hers. Let's start out off with I've Got No Time to Lose, which is going to be the banger for this one. 1964, it didn't quite crack the banger part, which is top 40, but it was number 67 on the pop charts. Written by Deanie Parker and Steve Cropper. We talked about Deanie and her impact on the business, and definitely Steve Cropper. So I mentioned that was written by Deanie Parker and Steve Cropper, co-written by those two. Deanie Parker worked for Stax as a singer-songwriter, later as a director of publicity and artists and community relations. And then she ended up being the president and CEO of the Soulsville Museum, played again Memphis, and the Tennessee Arts Commission. And Steve Cropper was the founding member of the Marquis and also a founding member of the Booker T and the MGs. And you remember they're like the house band for Stax. So that's where you get that funky groove in the background from. And you know Steve Cropper from the Dock of the Bay, Knock on Wood, in the Midnight Hour. A little something else about Miss Carla Thomas. She's been singing since she was a young thing. Her dad was a DJ for WDIA, which is one of the earliest African-American or black-owned radio stations. This is the B-side, is called A Boy Named Tom. I'll go ahead and let it play in the background while I give you a little bit more information. So she joined WDIA's radio Teen Town Singers at 10 years old. The requirement to even be a part of that was 14, but that's how phenomenal she was. And at one time, Isaac Hayes and Anita Lewis were also a part of WDIA's Teen Town Singers. So look at you, she's amongst greats. So she stayed until her senior year of high school, and you see what the results are. I talked about G-Wiz already. You see she's making these nice hits. They've called her the Queen of Memphis Soul, and you can see why. Want to bring it back to how I talked about Ahmet Ertegun and Atlantic. Now this music was cut on Stax, but Carla Thomas and her father Rufus Thomas were the first act to do cut any records on Stax. They sold so much and made such an impact that they were able to negotiate distribution deals, and meaning that there was so they got a big one with Atlantic, but that meant there was a clause in the agreement that Satellite would continue recording Carla, but her releases were the brand of Atlantic subsidiary, Atco or Atlantic. So that is why this record says Atlantic, even though she was a Stax artist. Thomas. So that was distributed by Atlantic Records. If you're looking for any more releases, copies, releases, re-releases, you're going to have to hit up Big Daddy Warner Music Group, because that is where the Atlantic catalog lies now. You know, there's only 3: Warner, Sony, and I always forget the last one. But a lot of the record labels have been absorbed into a bigger umbrella company. Anyway, number 2 of our 10 that we're discovering that were in Mommy's Pocketbook. My mother really liked to sing, so a lot of these high-pitched songsters, I can really tell. I can really see why they were favorites of my mother, because she also liked to sing, and her registry was kind of up that way too. Next one, and I promise you I do not pick these things on purpose. I try as much as possible to pick randomly. So the fact that I pull out her daddy next is like beyond me. Anyway, Rufus Thomas, I already told you about, is the father of the last album's owner, well, song owner, and that's Carla Thomas. And let me give you a little bit of information about him before we put that record on. And this is going to be one of those songs where one of those albums where we only play the first part, the side 1, because this is one of those part 1, part 2s, and you know that the part 2s are notoriously just either instrumental versions or jam session versions, where it's just like a continuation of the song, and we don't necessarily need to listen to the song twice. Although I have been known to do that when it's a banger that I especially like. But anyway, so we're going to listen to this one. It is called Do the Push and Pull. It's part 1, Rufus Thomas. Let me give a bit of background about him. Aside from being the father of Carla Thomas, they have called him the world's oldest teenager singer-songwriter whose career spanned from the 50s through the 70s. Well, he had hits in the 70s, quite a few. He had a small cameo role in Jim Jarmusch's Mystery Train, which was a film about Memphis pop culture and kind of like bigged up the music scene. His soul dance tunes could be counted on to be outrageous and fun, i.e. do the push and pull, and they were known to have dances to go with them. He was one of the few rock or soul stars to reach his commercial or artistic peak in middle age. That's why they call him like one of the oldest teenagers, because he's out here doing these crazy wild songs, but he's an older person doing that. So he started off in the 30s as a comedian, touring with a group called the Rabbitfoot Minstrels, and that was in the mid-30s. He started really making his mark in the 1940s as the DJ on WDIA, which I told you already was one of the few black-owned radio stations of the era. And there he ran talent shows on Memphis's famous Beale Street, the likes of which helped put future influential artists on the scene, like B.B. King, Bobby Blue Bland, Junior Parker, Ike Turner, Roscoe Gordon. So he and his daughter were the first artists on Stax. We talked about that. At the time, they were called Stax was called Satellite, founded by Jim Stewart and his sister Estelle Axton. That's what Stax stands for. The ST of Stewart and the X of Axton, their last names. Pretty clever, huh? Anyway, so he wasn't quite as successful, even though Because I Love You was a successful hit for Stax / Atlanta. He didn't. His solo career wasn't quite as fulfilled as Carla's, as fine as follow as I'm sorry, I can't talk. As far as hits were concerned, but he had a steady stream of dance and novelty singles. The biggest was Walking the Dog. In 1963, it hit number 10 on the pop charts. It's been even covered by the Rolling Stones, so you know it's dope. You know him for his commercial peak in the 1970s and all R&B top fives. Do the funky chicken now. You know that. Do the song we're about to listen to. Do the Push and Pull. The Breakdown from 1971, which was number 31. And a bunch of others that also cracked the top 100. So, with no further ado, I'm gonna give you Rufus Thomas's "Do the Push and Pull." Peaked on the cruised through on the charts in 1971, peaking at number 25. And written by Rufus Thomas himself. So there. Let's get it. Woo!
Shucks. It's all right. Hey, everybody. Mr. Rufus in town. Can't get it, take care of business. Ain't gonna mess around. I got a brand new dance. That ain't no bull. Everybody doing it. Talking about push and pull. I said push, pull, push, pull. Get on up, get on down, get on up, take it round and around. I said push, pull, push, pull. Never let go. Push it, pull it, push it, pull it. Look ahead. Push it, pull it, 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 push it, pull it. Get out on the floor. You're gonna get left. You're on your own, pretty baby. Now go for yourself. It's easy taking candy from a baby. Don't hand me no bull. Now you got it, baby. You got that push and pull. I said push, pull, push, pull. Listen, get on up, get on down, get on up, take it round and round. I said push, pull, push, pull. Listen, push it, pull it, push it, pull it. Never let go. Push it, pull it, 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 push it, pull it. Oh, Mr. Clean and James Brown. Everybody have been messing around. After the husband and laid on full, I got this thing talking about push and pull. I said push, pull, push, pull.
My apologies if you see me on camera trying to do what I think might be the dance for push and pull. I do not know how to do it, but I was doing some sort of push and pull maneuvers. Anyway, Rufus Thomas there. Also, additional production from Al Bell, Tom Nixon, Big Albertus Bell. We've talked about him before. He worked for Stax Records from 1965 on. He ended up becoming one of the sole owners of the label in 1972. But you do know that Stax ended up folding in 1975, 3 years later. But he went on to be executive other places. He served during the 1980s a few years as the president of Motown. And then he had his own record label, Bellmark. So he was part of the production for that, and Tom Nixon as well was a producer, engineer, songwriter, arranger for Motown, and also Stax. And we already talked about Stax. A little bit more information about Stax if you want to know about the extent to which they have provided the bangers for the soul and funk of the South. Back in the day, you had Booker T and the MGs, of course, who were the house band for the group, but also a group in their own right. Sam and Dave, the Barcades, Otis Redding. You also had Isaac Hayes, who cut his teeth as a songwriter back then, and also became a solo artist for Who Is the Man? You know the rest. The Staple Singers, The Emotions, Shirley Brown, Luther Ingram, The Dramatics. They folded, of course, 1975, bankrupt. Concord Music even ended up bringing Stax back briefly in 2008 and, with work from the likes of Jill Scott, Nika Costa, Angie Stone. So, don't sleep on the funk of yesteryear of Memphis soul that is Stax Records. Number 3 out of our 10 is coming from Shirley and Company. That's the name of the group. That's not just me saying she had company. Shirley and Company. Blues soul singer. So it's blues and soul music, R&B music. Headed by Shirley Goodman, who's from the NO, New Orleans. This is one of those records that has the same song on both sides. It is a single, so we will only be playing one song, just like we did with Rufus Thomas. Let me give you a little bit of information about Miss Shirley and her company. Let's see, where do we start? They called them the Sweethearts of the Blues. They had Let the Good Times Roll, 1956, hit the charts and peaked at number 20. And number 1 R&B for 3 weeks. And 1957's I Feel Good, which peaked at number 38 on the pop charts. So also, they kind of considered them like the beginnings of the disco, too. It featured Shirley Goodman, of course, on female vocals. Jesus Alvarez on male vocals. Walter Morris on guitar. Bernadette Randall on the keys. Sheldon Powell on the sax. Jonathan Williams on the bass, and Clarence Oliver on the drums. Okay, so a nice little wide variety of instrumentalists in the group. She first developed her vocal style in her Baptist church choir, and she would harmonize with her friends on street corners. So at 13, her and some of her schoolmates recorded a demo called I'm Gone, which was produced by a guy called Cosimo Matessa. So he played the master to Aladdin's Records owner, Eddie Messner, and a couple months later, Messner was fascinated with Shirley's high pitch, and so he had tracked her down. He's like looking around, hey, y'all know Shirley? Hey, y'all seen Shirley? And offered her a record deal, and then he ended up pairing her with a guy called Leonard Lee, and that was a group that she was in prior to being Shirley and Company called Shirley and Lee. And they went against kind of traditional harmonies of a male-female vocal duo in favor of contrasting the boy and girl duet. So their structure was deeply influential on the development of ska and reggae. Their debut single, I'm Gone, hit number 2 on the R&B charts in 1952. So they ended up touring with that Let the Good Times Roll much of that decade. So that was the 50s. And they ended up breaking up. She moved to Cali and became part of that in-house session singer. And she even made an appearance on Rolling Stone's masterpiece, Exile on Main Street. So she retired from the music industry, but she's hooked up with her homegirl that she knew, Sylvia Robinson. And Sylvia Robinson talked her into, come on, fly out back to Jersey. I want you to put these vocals down for this new song I got going on. And so she flew to Jersey in 1974 to cut the vocals for this new dance track. And that became the song we are about to listen to. And they ended up touring behind that record through 1976, after which she was going to record her gospel record, but those plans fell through. So she returned back to the NO and retired from the pop biz for good. So right now we're about to listen to Shame, Shame, Shame. On the charts in 1975, peaked at number 12, number 1 for 3 weeks on the R&B charts. It's Shame, 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 written by Sylvia Robinson. Yes, that's Sylvia Robinson of All Platinum, i.e. Sugar Hill Records. Shame, 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 Shirley and Company. I might have played for you the instrumental. Let's flip it and play the one with the vocals. Because that's what we came here for, right? To hear some vocals. And boom.
Don't stop the motion. If you get the notion, you can't stop the groove, cause you just won't move. Got my sunroof down, got my diamond in the back. Put on the second ring of all man and be going high. Shame on you, girl. If you can't dance through, I said shame, 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 shame. Shame on you. If you can't dance too. Remember one monkey don't stop no show.
Oh, thank you so much. Lovely dreams.
Yes, I'm going now. And find a dancing man. If you really think you're bad, better catch me if you can. Shame on you, girl. If you can't dance too. Shame on you. If you can't dance too. Shame on you. If you can't dance too. Shame on you. If you can't dance too. Don't stop the motion. If you get the notion, you can't stop the groove, cause you just won't move. Got my sunroof down, got my diamond in the back. Put on the shake and bring a boom in and it's all right. Shame on you. If you can't dance too. Shame, 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 shame. Shame on you. If you can't dance too. Shame, shame, shame.
All right. Some of these records end really wonky because they're old. Anyway, that was Shame, Shame, Shame. Shirley and Company. Let me tell you something. If you ever slept or were sleeping on Shirley Goodman and her vocals, sadly mistaken, because I was getting surprise after surprise after surprise in that. Like I said before, that was released on All Platinum Records. All Platinum Records was the record label started by Sylvia Robinson and her husband, Joe Robinson, in 1968. They had their own 8-track studio out in Jersey called Soul Sound Studios, which other record labels and artists did use. The All Platinum / Sugar Hill, because that is what they ended up becoming once they changed their name to that, were very instrumental in the careers of the Moments. And that's Love on a Two-Way Street, which was written and produced by Sylvia Robinson. Donnie Elbert, Rita Young, Send It Out in SOS, The Whatnots, Brother to Brother, and of course, Hip Hop, Hip it to the hip, to the hip, hip hop, you don't stop. Rapper's Delight. So you know, the Sugar Hill Gang, Grandmaster Flash, and the Furious Five. Very instrumental to the beginnings of rap and hip hop. So, without further ado, let's get to number 4 in our 10 records that we're going to go through. It's coming from George Duke. Now, this is another one of those records that is a part 1 and a part 2. Normally, we don't play both of them unless I'm really, 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 really excited about it and I want to hear it more. But we'll just play the part 1. It is the same song on each side. Part 2 is usually just a instrumental or a jam session. So we'll just be playing one side of it. This one is coming from George Duke, who is a prominent keyboardist, producer, arranger, band leader, composer, with pop, jazz, R&B, all kinds of music. He's a mainstay through a lot of different genres of music. He's from Marin City, California. While he was in college, he was a part of a house band in San Francisco's Half Note with another jazz great, Al Jarreau. They were also the band that backed many of the biggest names in jazz at that time, like Sonny Rollins and Dexter Gordon. So he recorded also with French violinist Jean-Luc Ponty. He's also worked with Frank Zappa, Cannonball Adderley. Lots of work with those greats. In the late 70s, he was produced for jazz, pop, Brazilian artists such as Raul de Souza, Dee Dee Bridgewater, A Taste of Honey. If you don't know A Taste of Honey, you know It's All Because of You. That's Sukiyaki by Taste of Honey. That was produced by George Duke. It hit number 3 on the pop charts and number 1 on the adult contemporary, which it stayed for 2 weeks, and number 1 on R&B, which it stayed for 1 week. So George Duke ain't no slouch on them keys and on them production tips, so don't sleep on him. Put some respect on his name, George Duke. Okay, let's listen to Dookie Stick, which sounds disgusting, but it's awesome because it's George Duke and he's an amazing musician.
Not at the bridge. It's on this side of the board.
And you know it's been sampled so many times. I know you hear it. Let's get into it.
What you see? A stroke shake is wrong. Come on over here for some snakes under the door. Now we got this stick that will set you free. All you got to do is take a closer walk with me. And we got this thing that's full of magic tricks. So come feel, if you will, the magic of the Dookie Stick. Hey, mama. Yeah.
We want to sing to you. Oh, we invite you to smoke. We want your hips to move. We want your lips to move.
I feel a thrill.
Okay, everybody.
I got this magic wand that's guaranteed to make you come to me, baby. Set yourself free.
Make a dookie stick.
My magic wand can do almost anything. Spin fire, make it rain. But most of all, it can make you spread your wings and fly away.
Talk to me quick. Let me know. We want your mind to blow.
My mind is blown. Is that all?
Let me know. We want your mind to blow. We want your mind to blow.
really get it, because this is like I said, from what, 1987. So before this, there's a lot of that funky bass line right there was like some popular. That's like pure, almost West Coast sound right there. That's one of those really funk driven, really bass and synth kind of centered. I love it so much, and I know that if you're from Cali, you can really appreciate it because it's heavily influenced. And it heavily influenced a lot of the sounds of a lot of artists. And, of course, it's been sampled many, many, many times. That was released on Epic Records, which was not launched in 1953 by CBS. Mainly jazz and classical releases. They had the Juilliard String Quartet, the Hague Philharmonic. And they ended up earning their first gold records 10 years later, which kind of like pushed them into being like, a pretty much a force in rock, R&B, and also country. The likes of Bobby Vinton, Sly and the Family Stone, the Dave Clark Five, Donovan. In the 70s, they had the Hollies and ABBA and Tammy Wynette. In the 80s, they had multi-platinum efforts from Meatloaf, the Jacksons, Sade, okay, Michael Jackson, Cyndi Lauper, hello, musical giants. If you're looking for any of those greats that were released on the Epic, including George Duke, you're going to have to holler at Big Daddy Sony, because that is where those records lie for re-release and repress. Next, so number 5 on our 10 that we're going through is coming from First Choice, which we played a couple of First Choice albums in shows before. We're going to go with The Bangalore. Yeah, we're going to shoot. I mean, it's hard to say. I'll give you some information about what's usually were their bangers. So they're R&B vocal trio from Philly. They're originally called the Debonettes. I guess they were quite debonair, but feminine. So Debonettes. So it was Rochelle Fleming, Annette Guest, Joyce Jones. And they performed around Philly, but a radio DJ by the name of George Woods introduced the group to the Philly soul guitarist Norman Harris. You've heard that name before. He produced their debut single, which is called This Is the House Where Love Died. It didn't do too much, got some airplay, but it didn't move any units, didn't break any charts. However, the next single was their first hit. It was called Armed and Dangerous, and it hit the charts at number 28 in 1973. Written by Norman Harris, Ronnie Baker, and Tom Bell. Tom Bell worked closely with Gamble and Huff of that Philly International Records, the Philadelphia Sound. Those are the creators right there. You always hear those names. Gamble and Huff, Tom Bell, Norman Harris, Ronnie Baker. Those names will come up time and time again. Right now, from First Choice, we're going to listen to 2 other songs that are outside of their hits, but no less probably bangers. Because just for it to be on... One thing I can tell you about black people, it doesn't have to be on the charts for it to be a hit with us. So let's check it out and see what's going on with these 2 songs. We got Smarty Pants, and we got One Step Away. I said we listen to One Step Away first. Written by Norman Harris, Ronnie Baker, and Tom Bell. Just told you about them. I can give you a little bit more information shortly. One Step Away by First Choice out of Philly.
Yesterday, in a certain section of the Daily Tide, the paper read, you will be read to a friend of mine. But if that's the price I have to pay, I'll accept the crumb she goes away. 'Cause I live another day of your being away from me, dear. Oh, there. Be another way. You don't know how I pray, but you hear I'm one step away from self-destruction. Believe me, baby, just one step away from self-destruction. These tears I've cried are lonely tears, 'cause they have seen the happiness we've had through the years. But now you've come to another, and now we're away from each other. Oh, I think another day of you being away from me, dear. Oh, there. If you another way, you don't know how I pray for you here. I'm one step away from some destruction. Just one step away from self-destruction. Yeah. Baby, why did you leave me?
One Step Away, like I said, written by Norman Harris, Ronnie Baker, Tom Bell. Norman Harris, like I said, guitarist. And songwriter, producer, arranger. He's also a founding member of Mother, Father, Sister, Brother, who we played last week. He produced a whole bunch. Eddie Holman, the South Soul Orchestra, Love Committee for South Soul Records, The Tramps. He and Tom Bell also have co-writing credits with the Delphonics. But he's got hits with Gloria Gaynor, Honeybee, the Delphonics, La 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 Means I Love You, Did Not Blow Your Mind This Time, The Spinners, I'll Be Around, Could It Be I'm Falling in Love. Tom Bell, 22 years old. He was a staff writer and touring conductor for Chubby Checker. Hello, he cut his teeth early in the game. Like I said, co-producing credits with Norman Harris with the Delphonics. He was pretty much responsible for the debut album of the Stylistics. Co-writer with his partner Linda Creed, who is a lyricist for Bet You By Golly, Wow, and You Are Everything for the Stylists, among many other hits. We're going to listen to the other side. We don't know which one was the banger side, but I like that one. Makes me want to do some hand dancing. Let's check out the other side. It's called Smarty Pants. Again, written by Norman Harris and Alan Felder, another songwriter, soul songwriter. Smarty Pants by First Choice. Boing.
By the way, my name is Smarty Pants. I could win a man with just one glance. And I could really let it stand. You gon' get wrong. They gon' think that he's to blame. Don't think that he's to blame. They call me Smarty Pants. Looking for a man. All I took was just one glance. I'm Miss Smarty Pants. They call me Smarty Pants. Looking for a man. All I took was just one glance. I'm Miss Smarty Pants. From the day I laid my eyes on Dan, I knew then I had to win this man. So I got high, some things not to buy. And I gave them something to really blow my head. Really blow my mind. They call me Smarty Pants. Smarty Pants. Look for me. Just like that. Yeah. Smarty Pants. Smarty Pants. Looking for a man. Just one man. Yeah. Smarty Pants. Now I know it's a man. Look like the joke's on me. There's so long to go. Now I want to be here. I want to be. They call her
Smarty Pants, the vocal trio from Philly, called First Choice. This was released on Philly Groove Records, which was a soul label started by Stan Watson and Sam Bell. They had R&A done for them by Tom Bell, who you know he knows music because he does a lot of producing and a lot of writing for a lot of big-time artists. They were distributed by Bell Records from 1967 to about 74, which was when Bell Records closed because it was absorbed into Arista. 2012, independent music publisher Reservoir Media Management acquired Philly Groove Records and its sister publishing company, Nickel Shoe Music. So, there it is. Reservoir Media Management. If you're looking for some represses of that particular set of music from those artists, that is first choice. And let's get into number 6. We are flying right through this bag that we're in today. Next one we got from kind of a group this I would say is a little obscure because it's not a whole bunch of information about them. But we're about to check it out anyway and see Watagwan. This is another record that we're only going to play one side because it's a part 1 and part 2. Part 2s are notoriously for instrumental grooves or jam sessions. So, we'll just be playing part 1, okay? It's called Step Into My World. And it's by a group called The Magic Touch. The Magic Touch is a female quartet who had a short career with a few singles on some small upstart labels. They never really got off the ground. So, Step Into My World 1971 was the high points in their career. It got more airplay and distribution than even the 2 follow-ups released 5 years later in 1976. They disbanded and Circo released a live rendition of this song in 1987. Not much hubbub came up about that either, but let's listen.
Into my world. It's not a world of make-believe. It's not a world of fantasy. Everyone's for real. Everything's for real. All of my world is full of so much love. And it's full of so much joy. And the love I give to you will be everlasting. There'll be no sorrow, there'll be no pain, there'll be no sorrow in my world. Love plays a part, not a game in my world. Step into my world. It's not a world of make-believe. It's not a world of fantasy. Step into my world.
If you don't respect nothing else, you better respect a high note. They don't do that anymore. I miss a high note. I miss a good high note in the song. Nobody takes that chance anymore. I mean, you have a couple artists that do, but most of them don't. I miss that in the game. Anyway, that was The Magic Touch, released on Black Falcon Records, which was owned by Bill Seabrook, who's one of the writer producers on that particular song. He owned Seabrook International Corporation. He owned the Black Falcon, which was this record label that this is printed on. You can't really see it because of the light and the fact that it's all black. And the Falcon's Roost, which was another imprint of his company. Also co-written by Viola Faye Gilliam, doesn't have much information about her. But I think that's an awesome song. The magic touch had the magic touch, because I mean everybody can't hit them high notes like that. Hence why they don't do them anymore. Probably. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to our 7th. It's coming from Dorothy Moore, gospel R&B soul singer out of Jackson, Mississippi. Best known for the hits Misty Blue. You know that song. In 1976, it peaked at number 3 on the pop charts. It was a number 4 hit for William Burgess 10 years before that, 1966. Simultaneously, while it was number 3 on the pop charts in 76 for Dorothy Moore, it was also number 2 for Dorothy Moore on the R&B charts. That same year, she released "Funny How Time Slips Away," which is a number 7 R&B song, and she continued on into the 1980s singing. That was with Volt in the 80s. This is released on Malaco Records. So, she got another top 10 hit after top 10 R&B hit in 1977 with the song that we're about to hear. It's called "I Believe in You." It's Dorothy Moore, "I Believe in You." Written by brothers Dick and Don Adrisi, who are an American pop disco duo from Massachusetts. This song hit the charts in 1977, peaked on the pop charts at 27. The strings and horns were arranged by Peter Lewis, who also worked with Crosby, Stills, and Nash, Rod Stewart, Casey and the Sunshine Band. Let's get into it.
And steal a star so you could put it on my finger. I believe you. Ooh, baby, I believe you. I believe you. I believe you. When you tell me every time that we make love will be the first time we make love, and every act of love will please you. Ooh, baby, I believe you. Love makes me follow you. I'd even obey if you wanted to. Just ask me and I'll marry you. You don't have to sell me, 'cause you overwhelm me. I made up my mind for a lifetime.
What up, Rick Dishley? Yo, 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 back to ya.
I believe you when you say you'll fill my body with your soul, and love will grow into a brown-eyed little girl who looks like we do. Ooh, baby, I believe you. Makes me follow you. I'd give it a day if you wanted to. Just ask me and I'll marry you. Don't have to sell me, 'cause you overwhelm me. I've made up my mind for a lifetime. I believe you. When you say your love will keep on growing strong, and that forever isn't long enough to love me like you need to. Baby, I believe you. Baby, I believe you.
That's Dorothy Moore right there. And let me repeat that shout out to Reddishley. I'm pretty sure I said it wrong the first time, but what it do, the harmony on that was amazing. Anyway, like I said, that was co-written by brothers Dick and Don Adrisi, and the horns were put together by Peter Lewis, who was renowned from doing horns and string arrangements for Rod Stewart, Julio Iglesias, Casey and the Sunshine Band, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and they were amazing as well. Dorothy Moore also, this was released on Malaco, but Stax went out. I told you they went bankrupt in 75. Well, they re-reacted in the 1980s, and she ended up joining Volt, which of course was a subsidiary of Stax, and she did a little bit of work on there before she ended up going back to Malaco for some work in the 90s. She released a holiday album as recent as 2002. It was called Please Come Home for Christmas, and that was for Farish Street Records. Let's listen to the other side, called Love Me, written by Eddie and Sonia Floyd. Eddie and Sonia Floyd. Eddie Floyd, singer, songwriter, producer from Montgomery, Alabama. Co-founder of the vocal group The Falcons in 1955. After they disbanded, he joined Stax as a songwriter producer. So his biggest hit that he produced was Knock on... Well, as an artist, his biggest hit was Knock on Wood. Eddie Floyd, that is. And in 1990s, he was on tour with the Blues Brothers Band. So this is Love Me Again by Dorothy Moore, co-written by Eddie Floyd and Sonia Floyd.
Oh, I can't deny. Take my hand, hold me close, darling. Just love me, love me, love me, love me. I will spend the night loving you, enjoying all the things that you do. Oh, you'll be fine with your every kiss. Oh, I never knew that love could be like this. Don't stop now, please don't stop. Darling, just love me, love me, love me, love me. Love me. Such a lovely night for love. What a lovely night for love. What a lovely, such a lovely night for love to prevent a perfect love. I want to spend the night loving you. Will you show me all the things I should do? So when you're thinking of your woman love, I know I'll be the one. Oh, that you think of. Take me now, show me how. Darling, just love me, love me, love me, love me. Take me now, show me how. Darling, just love me, love me, love me, love me.
That's another pretty powerful one from Dorothy Moore right there. Released on Malaco Records. Started by Tommy Couch and Mitchell Maloof. The name of the record label, Maloof, is a combination of both their last names, the M-A-L and the C-O from Couch. Malaco. 1966 is when they started in Jackson, Mississippi. It's based in black gospel and southern R&B music as far as like what their label was producing or into. They hit big nationally with King Floyd's Groove Me from 1970. And its Chimneyville label, also along with that, was distributed by Atlantic subsidiary Cotillion. They also hit again big with Gene Knight's Mr. Big Stuff. Yeah, they hit big with that, which was written by the Malaco folks, Tommy Couch and Mitchell Maloof, along with their other writing partner and another partner in business, Wolf Stevenson. And it was released, another song that was released on Stax but carried a different label due to the distribution deals that were going on back then. The label ended up getting national distribution in 1975 from Henry Stone's TK Productions, you know, the Miami-based disco, soul, R&B record label. And they had, Malaco ended up getting that monster hit with Misty Blue from Dorothy Moore. That was pretty much her only major hit. Like I said, it was number 3 on the pop charts and number 2 on the R&B charts in 1976. Later, Malaco had the likes of Johnny Taylor on there, Bobby Blue Bland, Little Milton, ZZ Hill, Denise LaSalle, to name a few. Yeah. And that was our number 7. We have 3 more to go, and I think you're going to like these last 3, okay? Maybe, maybe not. I like it. I didn't plan them this way either. It just got funkier as I went along. So, we got coming up one of the funkiest to ever do it. Fatback. I know you've heard of Fatback. Many of Fatback's songs have been sampled and then sampled again. R&B, disco, funk band formed in 1970 in New York City. The band was a concept of their drummer, Bill Curtis, and he wanted to merge the Fatback, let me do Fatback, quotation, the quote-unquote Fatback jazz beat of New Orleans into a funk band. And the original lineup consisted of Bill on drums, George Williams on trumpet, guitarist Johnny King, Johnny Flippin on bass, Earl Shelton on sax, George Adden on flute, Jerry Thomas on synth, Fred Demery on sax again, and another guitarist, George Victory. So they had some seminal hits with Do the Spanish Hustle. That was their first sizable hit, which hit number 12 in the R&B charts. Then they've got to Get My Hands on Some Money and Backstroke. You probably really know it for Backstroke if you went to roller skating or just disco boogieing all night long. The one looking for that good stuff. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Tighten up on that backstroke. Yes, that's Fatback. Anyway, their 1979 single, King Tim III, Personality Jock, in parentheses, that's the full title. You know, these songs from back in the day had way long titles. Anyway, it's kind of considered the first hip-hop single, and if you ever hear it, it's got like some rap in it. So, and like I said, it's from 1979, and that's the beginnings of when we were getting into rap. So we're gonna listen to I Like Girls, which is one of their hits from back then, written by the drummer Bill Curtis. And it's their first top 10 R&B hit in 1978. I Like Girls by Fatback. And this is on Spring Records. We'll talk a little bit about them. We got a little bit of information. But let's get into I Like Girls.
Out on the street or what?
Fatback likes the girls. According to Fatback, that's what summer is for. Watching girls. He said the boys watching the girls and the girls watching the girls. Their biggest year was in 1980 with the 2 top 10 R&B hits with Gotta Get My Hands on Some, Money in parentheses, and Backstroking, the one that I sang for earlier. Looking for that good stuff. Dun, 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 dun. Tighten up on that backstroke. You know it. Another top 20 hit was in 1981 with Take It Any Way You Want It. And they were backed by a vocal group, a female vocal trio called Wild Sugar from 1981 to 1982. Because, you know, sometimes you need a little extra, a different touch to your music. So that was sometimes done. Well, a lot of times done in music. You hear the Emotions on Earth, Wind, and Fire. You hear the Wildflowers on Foxy, which we'll dive into a little later. They were also provided lead vocals on a song called Spread Love, which was kind of a good hit for them in 1985. We're going to listen to the other side of that, which is called Get Out on the Dance Floor. Guess who wrote this song? This dude, I don't know if you know him. His name is Michael Jones. He's a, multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter, producer, artist, composer. He's an author. He's a director. He's an educator. He was a member of BT Express, the Busboys, Artists United Against Apartheid. I mean, his name is Michael Jones, but they call him Kashif. Kashif was also an artist in his own right. Put some respect on Kashif's name, because Kashif's he's got a major touch in the industry, and he wrote this song for Fatbacks called "Get Out on the Dance Floor." Fatback, written by Kashif.
Get out on the dance floor. Get out on the dance floor.
You gotta put your stank face on for this.
Get out on the dance floor. Get out on the dance floor. Get out on the dance floor. Treat yourself to something, won't matter about your taste. Don't worry about nobody, just do it your own way. We search very far to find a group that's near. When we feel emotion, so glad to be here. Oh, sweet music. We just want you to get out on the dance floor. Just do it till you can't no more. Get out on the dance floor. At first you shy and then you sure. Get out on the dance floor. You wanna have some fun in simple ways. Get out on the dance floor. Shake it loose, what don't say. Get out on the dance floor. 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 Get out on the dance floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Fatback right there. Written, produced by Michael Jones, better known as Kashif. This was released on Spring Records, which was formed in 1967 by Bill Spittlesky Roy Rifkin, and Julie Rifkin. They were also simultaneously the vice president, and general manager of Gaucho Music, which was the publishing company for Spring Records. They stayed around until about '93. And need I remind you? I said they started in '67. So, I mean, in Fatback doing these grooves like that, they had to hang around so they could keep on pushing them out. Number 9, we seem to be coming a little bit forward, a little bit. And I say that because I think we jumped back a little bit after this. But sometimes we're heavily into the early 60s with some of our music. Because I am talking about the music of my mom and her peers. Because some of these records, I see names on them owned to her or were owned by siblings of hers, my aunts and uncles, or friends of hers. So, this one is coming from The Deal. What you know about The Deal? Okay. R&B group from Cincinnati. And this is another one of those records that we're only going to play one side because it's a single. On one side, you have the true recording with the vocals and everything. And the other side, you have the instrumental. So we'll just be playing one side. So this is The Deal. Let's give you some information behind it since we're only doing the one. R&B group from Cincinnati, formed by Bobby G. Summers and L.A. Reid, better known as Mark Rooney. It consisted of Darnell Bristol, Carlos Green on vocals, Stanley Burke, and you'd think, I mean, everybody sang, but, you know, there were different positions for everybody. Stanley Burke, Kenny Babyface Edmonds, who was actually on keys also, and of course Mark L.A. Reid Rooney, and Kevin Robertson. You know those names Babyface and L.A. Reid because they are heavy hitters in the music industry as songwriters and producers as well. I'm going to give you a little bit of behind the scenes about The Deal. They were formed in 1981, kind of from the ashes or remnants of a group that some of them were in before that, called Manchild. Babyface was the guitarist for Manchild, and they had a minor hit in 1977 called "Especially for You." And but once they rejoined and formed The Deal in 1981, they recorded 3 albums throughout the 80s with 2 hit banger singles, and that was Shoot 'Em Up Movies. I remember the video for that. I think they had Jerry Curls in that too. You know, that's back in the day. Well, that's throwback back in the day. Some of these songs are way back, but that's kind of throwbacky. The Jerry Curls. Some people still wearing Jerry Curls too out in the West Coast, so in the South. Deep South. So I've heard. Anyway, so Shoot 'Em Up Movies on 2 occasions, which we're about to listen to, was on the charts in 1988, peaked at number 10. This was released on Solar Records. Let me give you a little bit of background about Solar Records. First of all, Solar is not just solar like the system, but it's an acronym also. This stands for Sound of Los Angeles Records. It was founded by Soul Train's booking agent, talent supervisor, Dick Griffey. He worked for, Soul Train. He was booking the people. He's also responsible for, like, Shalimar, who used to be Soul Train dancers. So after they created, they created Soul Train Records, he and Don Cornelius. But then Soul Train became such a massive hit that Don was like, I need to focus a little bit more on this show. And he was like, okay, bet. So they kind of dissolved Soul Train Records, closed all the legal business. And what was the skeleton of that business was renamed Solar, with Dick Griffey at the helm of that. From 1977 on, yeah. And the successes of Solar are like Dynasty, Climax, Meeting in the Ladies' Room, hello. The Whispers, and the Whispers, they still making music. Where's my thing? Flowers while they still here. I got to do that. Got to give some of them Whispers that are still here flowers while they're still here. Lakeside, Midnight Stars, some of them still here. Give them flowers while they are still here. Also, Dick Griffey was a cool dude, and I'll tell you why. Because with Solar Records, he wanted to make he was in the habit of giving new talent a shot, and so Solar Records was one of the first record labels to really recognize like Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who are a force to be reckoned with as far as like songwriting and producing is concerned, and the whole 80s and 90s. Hello, and they're still making jams out here in these streets. Of course, L.A. and Babyface, who grew out of being artists and into molding other artists, and other talents and songwriters and producers like Reggie Calloway and Vincent Calloway and Leon Silver. So shout out to Dick Griffey for that. We're about to listen to Two Occasions, one of those hits that the deal had back in those days. It was written by Babyface, Sidney Johnson, and Darnell Bristol. You know Babyface, over 26 number one R&B hits he's written. He's got 11 Grammys, he's done 10 solo albums, not to mention he produced a lot of soundtracks that have been epic as far as like influence in the industry. They call him Babyface because Bootsy Collins gave him that name because he maintained such a babyface look in his teenage days. So he was one of the writers of this, and let's get into it. It's an awesome song. If you have somebody with you, grab them and do a little two-step slow drag with them. Because if you're gonna do that on any song, it has to be this one. Watch these high notes though. Let me tell you something. I never used to like slow songs, but that's a great slow song right there. And also, it's just a good song. And the harmony and everything is great. And like I said, I miss the high note. I need some singers to bring the high note back to R&B and bring the whoo. That one when you just hit whoo. Just that. I need to bring the who back and the high notes. And what else? I don't know. I talk about so many things every time. Our last song of the night, of the episode, because we don't always do it at night. I'm playing the B side first because I need to hear the A side last, and it is because it is from the R&B group from it is from I'm on the wrong page of my note. It is from a funk disco R&B-ish type group that used to be a house band for Henry Stone's TK Production. We talked about them, the Miami-based label. So they were the house band after Casey and the Sunshine Band. So that gives you an inkling into what type of music we're about to get into. Funky, disco-y, dance music. It was Ish Ledesma on lead vocals, Arnold Pasiero on bass, Richie Puente Jr. on percussion, Charlie Marciano on keys, and Joey Galdo on the drums. They used to do some gigs on the side, to supplement their income from working for the record label, and one of those things spawned a hit somewhere close by to where I am in Dixie. Boo boo. You know what? I forgot. Make sure you give the flowers while they're here to Babyface L.A. Reid because boom, still in this business. Still in the game doing it. So we're going to listen to their B-side. The group is called Foxy. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay, I don't know where my voice is going. I was doing a lot of yelling yesterday. My bad. Anyway, we're going to listen to, it's not necessarily the B-side, but the other side of the actual A-side, which was the mega dance hit. This is called You Make Me Hot. Ooh. By Foxy on Dash Records. You Make Me Hot, I said Foxy. And I know you heard me mention a lot of male names that are associated with males mostly, and you hear female vocals right there. That's because they enlisted the Wildflowers to do female vocals on a lot of their songs. Well, not a lot of their songs, but quite a few of their songs. The Wildflowers were a trio. They were popular on the Miami dance scene doing those vocals. That's called You Make Me Hot. It was written by the lead vocalist of Foxy, and that is Ish Ledesma. And also, they were added to this next banger that I'm about to put on for you. I mentioned that they were the house band for TK Productions back then. But they also were doing gigs on the side in different cities. And they were hanging out doing a gig in Maryland. And they got the idea for this next hit. Released on Dash, a Florida soul funk disco label that operated closely with TK Productions. And, yeah, they were in Maryland hanging out, and they got the idea for this funky song that I'm about to play at a club in Maryland. So they went back home to Miami, and they did some working on it, you know, tweaking and everything. And it became 1978 number 9 on the pop charts, number 1 on the R&B charts for 2 weeks. It is called Get Off. And it's our last song of the day. I love it. And it's on a banger. Shout out to Marilyn for being whatever inspiration that Allow them that creativity to come up with that song because it is an awesome banger to this day. It's from 1978. This is 2021 and it's still a banger. Anyway, that's what was in Mommy's Pocketbook this episode. You know, a little bit of soul, a little bit of R&B, a little bit of pop, a little bit of funk. George Duke, you know, Carla Thomas, Dorothy Moore, The Deal, Foxy, of course. We've been through it, and we had a good old time. At least I had a good old time. I hope you did. If not, come back next week. We're going to have more. I exhausted one of the little sections of records. That means I'm going to have to dive into another one. We're going to see what we find. It's going to be an awesome trip into back in the day to discover what the youth and young adults of yesteryear was listening to, what was hot in the streets. This has been Mommy's Pocketbook. If you missed any of it, you can always catch the Recreate broadcast, previously recorded portion of this that will be up on YouTube at Kane Dizzle. Holler. Huh.